is Dr. Emma Gray, and I'm the lead clinical psychologist at the British CBT Counselling Service. And in this video, I'm going to show you 3 tips to help you to deal with anxiety. Now, it's estimated that 3.6% of the global population are suffering with anxiety, and it's quite likely that this is a massive underestimation. I think that there's probably many people who are suffering with anxiety, but they just don't know that that's the problem that's making them feel so bad. So if you think that this might be you can watch my video, What is Anxiety? And that gives you a way of kind of self-diagnosing. The thing about anxiety though is it's very treatable, and I'm going to show you 3 of the most effective techniques that you can use. The first technique is about working with your thoughts. Okay, so our feelings are influenced or determined by the way that we think. So when you're feeling anxious, your anxiety will be driven by very, very anxious patterns of thinking. And there's 2, I suppose, main types of thinking that drive our anxiety. The first type is a tendency to overestimate disaster or anticipate the worst is going to happen. So it could be something about you, it could be about losing control, maybe fainting or doing something inappropriate. You might be thinking something about other people, so anticipating their criticism or their rejection, or maybe just something in the world, some accident happening. So identify your particular version of this and then look at how accurate that prediction actually is and base it on the facts. Because what we do when we're anxious is we tend to muddle up possibility and probability. So most things are possible, but you want to look at how likely that is. Then when you've done this, try to develop an alternative thought that more accurately represents what's going on in the world, what is likely to happen based on the facts. The second type of thinking pattern that we tend to use when we're anxious is to underestimate our ability to cope. So to deal with this type of thinking, what you need to do is identify the worst case scenario, the worst thing you can imagine possibly happening, and then think how you'd cope with that. Because if you can work out a plan for that eventuality, everything else that might happen will feel like a walk in the park, and this will feel reassuring. Okay, the next technique is about your breathing. So when we're anxious, the parasympathetic nervous system in the body takes over, and this leads to all of those unpleasant symptoms that you experience when you feel anxious. So the heart palpitations, the breathlessness, the shaking, the dizziness, the nausea, all of these things. But you can actually use your breath to turn this system off and turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, or your rest and digest nervous system. And this will bring everything back into balance and will help will get rid completely of those unpleasant sensations. So there's 3 types of breathing techniques that you can use to do this. So I'm going to show you all 3 of them, then you can pick your favourite. So the first one is to cup your hands and place them over your nose and mouth and breathe into the space. And to maybe breathe in that way for 20 to 30 breaths or until you start to feel calmer. And what you're doing here is you're not only slowing down your breath, so switching on your parasympathetic nervous system, but you're re-inhaling the carbon dioxide that you breathe out. And what this does is it brings your blood chemistry back into balance, which again helps with those unpleasant, anxious sensations. The second breathing technique is very simple. It's just about counting your inhale and your exhale and matching them so they're of equal length. So begin by breathing in for 3 and then breathing out for 3. So in, 2, 3, and out, 2, 3. In, 2, 3, and out, 2, 3. Do this for about 5 breaths then increase the count by 1. So inhale for the count of 4 and exhale for the count of 4. So let's try that. In, 2, 3, 4 and out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4 and out, 2, 3, 4. And again, repeat that for about 5 breaths. If you can, without feeling uncomfortable, increase that again to the count of 5. And continue breathing in this way until you start to feel calmer. The third type of breathing technique is something called an interrupted breath, and it's a yoga breath. It's a little bit more complicated, but if you can master it, it's incredibly effective. So what you're doing is, as you inhale, you're taking 3 pauses within that inhale. So you breathe in a little bit and pause. You breathe in again and pause. Then you complete the breath, hold it with your lungs full, and then slowly exhale. So let's practice that. Breathing in through your nose, inhale and pause. Inhale again and pause. Complete the breath and pause and slowly exhale. And once more, inhale and pause. Inhale a little more and pause. Complete the breath, pause and slowly exhale. And breathe like this, maybe completing 5 to 10 breaths or until you notice your anxiety begin to dissipate. Now the thing is with these breaths is to not just wait until you feel really anxious. Try to practice whichever breathing strategy you choose throughout the day, and this will keep your overall levels of anxiety lower. But what it also means is when you start to feel anxious, those breathing techniques will be very familiar to you, and so you'll just be able to pick them up and use them. Okay, so the final tip is about what we do when we're anxious. Now, nature has programmed us when there is something that makes us feel afraid to avoid it. It's the kind of run to the back of the cave and hide response. Now, in the short term, avoiding the things that make us feel anxious does make us feel better because that thing has instantly been taken off the table. The problem with avoiding something, though, over the longer term is it eats away at your confidence. And as our confidence drops, our anxiety increases. So you need to try gradually to re-engage with whatever it is you're avoiding. So there's 2 ways of doing this. If you find that you're avoiding lots of different things, make a list of those things and then rank them in order of how much anxiety they provoke. Then starting with the easiest, you need to work your way through that list, practicing each one over and over and over and over again until you feel so comfortable doing that thing, it almost feels a bit tedious and boring. At that point, you move on to the next thing. And this may take you months to do, but this slow and steady response will allow you to build your confidence in your ability to cope. So I suppose linking back to that thought we were talking at in tip 1, this underestimating your ability to cope, this is working to counteract that. The second way of doing this is really if there's one big thing that you're avoiding. So what you do is you take this one big thing and you break it down into more easily achievable steps. So an example would be maybe being afraid to go on a train. So you might start by just standing on the train platform until you feel comfortable. Then the next step might be to get on a train at the beginning or end of the journey while it sits in the station. The next step might be to travel 1 stop, and then you would travel 2 stops, 3 stops, etc. Now, all of these techniques individually will take the edge off your anxiety. If you can practice all of them together and your symptoms of anxiety are kind of mild to moderate and you haven't been struggling for too long, so maybe no more than about a year to 18 months, this working in this way should get rid of your anxiety. However, if it doesn't, or if your anxiety, you've been struggling for longer and it's more severe, you might need a little bit of extra support. So in that case, you need to look for a counsellor who is experienced in working with anxiety, ideally using CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, because that's been shown to be the most effective talking therapy for anxiety, and they can help you to work through your anxiety. Okay, so that's the end of this video. I hope it was useful. If it was, please like, subscribe and share with your friends. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.